Hello, my name is Kristin Karelius. I'm 17 years old and I come from Oslo, Norway. When I was little, I really wanted to be a pirate. They were so cool to me. In popular culture and media, they're presented as these sort of freedom fighters who break with the status quo and defy authority. And most fascinating to me was that they were able to travel wherever they wanted, whenever they wanted. The ocean seemed to me so limitless without restrictions. But I grew up and I realized that this is a very romanticized version of what pirates actually were and are. And while most of us have grown up with this romanticized version of pirates, Norwegians grow up with a tale of our own, called the oil fairy tale. And most of us have never really grown out of it. With you today, I will be exploring how Norway's continued glorification of our oil industry impacts the global climate crisis we're facing today. I read an article from 2019 in The Guardian about Pastafarianism, otherwise known as the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. And this church, amongst other unusual beliefs, claimed to believe that the climate crisis is caused by the decline in the pirate population. And to illustrate this, every year on September 19th, they celebrate International Talk Like a Pirate Day. And then every year following, the months get colder. That is in the Northern Hemisphere. So this church's beliefs are best appreciated with a grain of salt. And they are not the main point of my talk, but I do, however, sometimes wish that we could save the world by all acting like pirates. And this summer, I got to live out part of my pirate fantasy when I went on a ship. It's this very one you see behind me. It's a beautiful vessel from 1927. It's called Sørlandet. And the ship was taken on a journey along the Norwegian coast by Nature and Youth. This is the biggest environmental organization in Norway for young people. And I've been a part of it since I was about 13 years old. And there I experienced what it is to work alongside dedicated people who truly care about the future of our Earth. And I learned what it is to take power of your own future. So on our voyage, we aim to answer the question, can we save the world by sailing? Did we answer this? I think yes. I will tell you about what sailing taught me. The first thing you do when you get on a ship is you learn the ropes. Like here. It's a saying most of us have heard in other contexts, but what does it mean on a ship? On a ship, all the sails are fastened by dozens of ropes to the mast or on deck, and each rope has a designated spot and a knot securing it. And as a sailor, you need to know every single rope, knot, and you need to know what your designated role is, whether that is at the wheel or as a lookout. And the lookout is one of the most important roles on the ship. They stand at the very tip of the ship, right there, the helm, and they scout across the horizon, looking for obstacles on the ship's course. And if they see something, they have to ring this huge bell, and the captain, all the way at the other end of the ship, has to ring back, signaling, I've seen the obstacle and I'm changing course. But what happens if the captain doesn't respond? For decades, scientists and young people have been our lookouts, and they've been ringing the alarm bells frantically because they see that we are on collision course. But our captain, our governments, and the people in power aren't responding. They're not even at their positions. They're at the edge of the ship, and they are throwing all the resources we have to make it through this storm overboard to pirates. But who are these pirates, and what is a pirate? The Cambridge Dictionary defines a pirate as a person who sails on a ship and attacks other ships in order to steal from them. But I wanted to look at it a little deeper, and I went on the online etymology dictionary. And it tells me that pirate from Greek is a little closer to one who attacks. And that is exactly what the fossil fuel industry is doing. They are attacking and they're getting rich off of destroying our futures. In January, The Guardian posted an article titled, "Smoking Gun Proof. Fossil fuel industry knew of climate danger as early as 1954." And it describes documents detailing the effects of CO2 emissions and research done by Charles Keeling being funded by fossil fuel companies themselves. Jeffrey Supran, expert in historic climate disinformation from the University of Miami, says, "These findings are a startling confirmation that big oil has had its finger on the pulse of academic climate science for 70 years, and a reminder that it continues to do so to this day. They make a mockery of the oil industry's denial of basic climate science decades later." And this is exactly my point. The oil industry has hurt us, but they don't care. So how did the Norwegian oil fairy tale begin? The story goes that in 1969, oil, the black gold, was discovered in the North Sea. Before it, Norway was a country of farmers and fishers with little significance in the global community. Oil changed us. It saved us. It created our welfare state and our oil fund, our national insurance of more than 1.7 trillion US dollars. I want to tell you a fun fact about the beginning of this story. It comes from a Norwegian podcast. The title of it directly translates to oil horny. And this is a term commonly used among Norwegian climate scientists to describe the general attitude in the public and in our politicians concerning oil. The fact goes, oil was found the summer of 1969, but the company, American Phillips Petroleum, waited until our little Christmas Eve, December 23rd, a day of magic and family, to announce the news to the public and the state. I won't claim to know the reasoning behind this, but what it does mean is that from the beginning, oil has been framed as Norway's Christmas present and miracle. And the Norwegian model for distributing the oil wealth has worked in order to contribute to security for our people. In 1972, Statoil was founded, which is a completely state-owned company under parliamentary control, and they still operate today under the name Equinor. But they operate as if it was still 1972, and they could pretend that they had no idea of the harm that they're causing. While the world faces immense instability, the oil industry thrives. In 2022, they had their most profitable year ever, raking in almost $75 billion. This is seen in light of reports such as the one that came out from the UN's climate service Copernicus on June 6th, announcing that this May was the 12th consecutive month of record-breaking global warming and intense heat. And on June 5th, Earth System Science Data came out with indicators of global climate change 2023, revealing that 90% of last year's global warming was due to human activities. So even though we see natural phenomena like El Nino being blamed for a lot of natural disasters across the media, less than 10% was caused by natural causes. And my country, as well as absolutely most of your countries, have committed in the Paris Agreement to limit global climate warming to less than 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial rates. While the report from the UN that came out before COP in November reveals that the 20 biggest producers of oil and gas plan to produce 110%, more than twice the amount of oil and gas by 2030 than would be consistent with the agreement. And this includes my country. Norway can cut up to 165 million tons of global emissions by phasing out our oil and gas. And I say global because this is 3 times the amount that we actually emit annually. These numbers, presented by Nature and Youth, illustrate that Norway, albeit being small, can have such a large impact on our climate crisis. This means that my politicians, with our immense resources to turn away, need to do so now. This brings me to my last point of momentum. On the ship this summer, our captain, who in this instance was very present and capable, calculated that it would be favorable for us to sail all the way down to the Danish coast, and there we would execute a quick turnaround maneuver. To do this, we needed all hands on deck. The people sleeping off their night shifts were called up, and everyone was placed in position to pull on their rope or reef the sail, which is pulling it up and then releasing it quite quickly, and we turn the wheel with the wind. Because on a ship, if you find yourself in a situation where you sail too far and you need to turn around quickly, you need manpower, all hands on deck, and you need momentum. And our ship finds itself in this situation. We need to turn around, and we cannot simply turn the wheel at the last minute. So I need every one of you to know your roles. I'm from Norway, and that to me means that I have to push my politicians to phase out oil and gas, and I need to help them realize they cannot keep believing the fairy tales their mommies told them. But that's not the reality where you're from. What can you do? And what do you need to do? Because this is our futures, and we cannot control it all, but we need to control what we can. We need to change course. Thank you.